When the season began, I think we looked at this Yankees team, and I think a lot of people identified that the starting rotation might be the issue. Garrett Cole went down with an injury. You had Luis Heel starting the season on the IL, Clark Schmidt starting the season on the IL, and you didn't know what you were going to get from Rodon. Fried had not yet pitched a regular season game for the Yankees, and you had some other pieces. Will Warren, a rookie in the rotation. As we sit here on June 25th, the rotation has been great. The rotation has not been a problem. But some of the other flaws on this team have become very evident lately, and it's threatening the Yankees' place atop the American League East as we get closer and closer to the All-Star break. The Yankees fall 5-4 in extra innings to the Cincinnati Reds on Tuesday night. The Yankees have now lost 2 in a row against the Reds to open this, so they will lose this series. They have now lost 3 of their last 5 games, and if you want to date back to the 13th, they have lost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of their last 12 games. And that has put them in quite a precarious position atop the American League East still. They will sit in that spot once again, but it's getting really close now. The margin is becoming razor thin. Well, not just the Tampa Bay Rays, but the Toronto Blue Jays as well, who are in third place. Just a bad overall day. The Jays win, the Rays win, the Yankees lose. This one hurts. This was a game when the Yankees were up 3-0 heading into the bottom of the 7th inning. Carlos Rodon was cruising, and Baron Boone decides to take him out after 88 pitches. Brings in Jonathan Loaizaga, who promptly gives up 3 runs and gets hurt. And I know there were a couple infield hits there. There were a couple soft hit balls before the bases clearing double, but just not good enough from this bullpen. And then in extra innings, the Yankees finally get a ghost runner to come across in the 11th inning, but it was on a wild pitch. So this is a team that still can't produce its own run itself in extra innings. They lose again in extra innings, this time in the 11th. The bullpen is going to need some help before the deadline, and I think we all know that at this point. I think the Yankees are going to focus pretty heavily on adding pieces to that pen, particularly with Luis Heel set to come back soon-ish, and the way that the rest of that rotation has fared, and the fact that there's not really a large amount of high-quality starters that are going to be available at the deadline. The Yankees are going to probably heavily focus on the bullpen and probably a right-handed hitting third baseman. Essentially, a lot aside from the starter, the same stuff we've been talking about since March. So, I just don't know. Apologies for the long pauses. I'm getting frustrated, as I'm sure you are out there as well, watching the Yankees lose the same way so often this year. And, their offense isn't doing enough right now. And it's not that It's not that I'm hesitating to blame the offense. I'm hesitating because you took a 3-0 lead into the 7th. You should win those games. I'm sorry, you should. But it just, they can't seem to get everything operating outside of their starters on the same page. And I know the bullpen's a little bit gassed. You're in this long stretch of games here, but you have a 3-0 lead against a team you should be better than. You got to close out this game, and they just haven't been able to close out these games. And you start to wonder how good this team really is. And this is not a bad baseball team. It's not a great baseball team. And you're starting to wonder if this is the quintessential regression to the mean back to the wild card caliber team that at least I thought they were entering the season. And we talked about that extensively on this podcast early in the year. I thought, this was a low 90s wild card, low 90s in terms of wins wild card team. And they outplayed that pace in the first 2 months of the season by a significant margin, even on pacing themselves for 100+ wins. But they're coming back down to earth pretty rapidly again here in the middle of the season. It's just incredibly frustrating. And it really did feel like once the Reds came back to tie the game at 3 in the 7th, it just kind of felt like you never felt like the Yankees were going to win this game. And you've missed opportunities. You had, Aaron Judge had the bases loaded, and popped up. You had different opportunities at different points in this game to push across runs, and you're just not getting enough again from the bottom of this lineup. There is no one person to blame. I mean, I think that's the reality of the situation. There is no one person to blame. Yes, there are times where, your Anthony Volpe has some bad at-bats with runners on. Yes, there are times where you wish Judge wasn't slumping as much as he is right now relative to what we expect from him. But there is no single person to blame in this game, and it's not just on Jonathan Loáisiga. Obviously, he's the guy that's going to get the big red dot next to him for this game because of the runs that he gave up there in the 7th before leaving with an apparent injury. But this is just a systemic problem that this team has right now, and this team doesn't do the little things well. They do them better than they did last year, but they still don't do the little things well, particularly with the bats. And I think that's the interesting part. Like last year, you could talk about the fundamental issues they had on the base paths, and the Yankees still kind of have that a little bit. You could talk about the defensive issues. The Yankees have shored up for the most part. I mean, again, it's not perfect, but they've shored up a lot of those defensive issues this year. But one thing that, aside from their issues on the bases, which we have seen crop up more than a few times this year, they're not doing the little things well with the bats. And I think that's the big concern. And it's not, they're not having productive at-bats when they get runners in scoring position, whether it is in extra innings, which has been painfully obvious every time they get into extra innings, it feels like, but even at other various points throughout the game. They don't do a good job. I should say consistently, because they have at times, but you've seen when they've had a lot of offensive success this year, one of two, yes, there are times where they're just hitting and mashing a bunch of home runs, but it's a lot easier to kind of just string good at-bats together. And it's just something that they're just not doing on a consistent basis right now, particularly with runners in scoring position, and particularly with it's anybody at the plate. It's anybody. Who do you want at the plate right now? The bases loaded in a situation where you can potentially take the lead and win the game than Aaron Judge. He just didn't come through. So, Ben Rice had a big opportunity, and he's, I know his numbers don't look as good as he's probably playing, but he's been tearing the cover off the ball, at least from a metric standpoint. Hits a long home run early in this game. He didn't come through late. So there are a lot of things to blame. We could talk about the bullpen usage. We could talk about whether or not Rodon needed to come out of this game at 88 pitches. We could talk about whether the bullpen is being managed the way it needs to be managed properly. I think there's some fresh blood is needed. I know Mark Leiter's gotten some big outs this year, but he's also been a little bit more erratic than you would hope for. And if you kind of look back to what he's been in his career, he has been a little bit of this up and down. Fernando Cruz, when he's on, he's dominant, but he's been up and down. Jonathan Loáisiga does not right now, barring the injury, but does not right now look like the same pitcher before he went down with the injury. He has some big moments still, but he's been hit around a lot more. And, do you have a lefty in the bullpen aside from Tim Hill that you trust? Right now, no. You did briefly with Ryan Yarbrough, but obviously you put him in the rotation, and obviously now he's on the IL. So, is Yarbrough going to go back to the bullpen when he gets back? Because Stroman's coming back soon. So, there are a lot of issues this team needs to solve. We didn't even get into Jazz getting thrown out of the game. I'll talk about that briefly. Look, normally, and anybody who watched the College World Series would know, I am very dubious of umpires that have a quick trigger to throw people out. It is the one big power they have over players and managers is the ability to unilaterally decide that you just can't play or manage in this game anymore. And I think a lot of times that power gets abused. The home plate umpire on Tuesday night showed an incredible amount of restraint for a long time. He let Jazz say his piece after, again, it was a ball. There was a ball in the count that would have taken the count from 3-0. Instead, it was 2-1. It was low. Jazz was correct. It was the wrong call. The Yankees had received a very similar call either an inning or 2 innings prior in their favor in almost the same exact spot. But regardless, it was an incorrect call. However, so Jazz got his piece. Jazz ends up striking out, says something else on his way back to the dugout, is fine. Proceeds to yell from the dugout during another at-bat, in addition to the time between innings, continues to yell, then comes out on the field to play defense in the bottom of the inning, makes eye contact with the umpire, starts saying something again, then he gets thrown out. At that point, I'm not going to blame the home plate umpire. Like, he gave you way more than, quite frankly, than you ever see, even at the major league level, way more leniency. I mean, we saw DJ LeMahieu get thrown out a game, 2 weeks ago, for saying, you missed the call or whatever when he was rounding first base in the inning. So we see these umpires throw these guys out like instantly. He gave Jazz a ton of leeway, and Jazz just kept going. And then obviously just exploded once he already got thrown out. Expletives from the dugout, had to be held back by Boone on the field, and then had to be held back by Jason Dominguez and others in the dugout. I mean, he just went apoplectic in that game. So, and quite frankly, on a call, again, he wasn't wrong about the call being incorrect, but just even given the situation, given the moment, I'm not sure it warranted that sort of response, that sort of anger, that sort of lingering vitriol. It was kind of odd to see in the moment, but Jazz is lucky he's not going to get suspended, put it that way, because he was putting himself in a position to miss some time with the way he was acting there at the end. But regardless, the Yankees continue. They will open up today, still top the AL East, even if it's just barely, but salvage the series now. Max Fried's on the mound here, another 6:10 p.m. start time. Fried, Singer. I mean, I don't know what else to say at this point. Like, this is not quite as low as I felt after that. What it was last week? I guess it was only a week ago. Damn it, man! It was only a week ago when the Yankees lost that game to the Angels 3-2 to extend their losing streak to 6. But I don't know. Even since then, they're 3-3. I mean, it's not like they're lighting the world on fire now and they've solved everything. So, I don't know. This was a really disappointing loss. It was a really, really, really good start for Carlos Rodon, and just completely spoiled by the bullpen and a lack of timely hitting. Fortunately, that's becoming a theme lately. But we'll see if the Yankees can bounce back with Max Fried on the mound before they finally mercifully have an off day on Thursday. But it's not a lot of fun baseball right now for the Yankees, and hopefully it'll be a little bit better tonight.